This is Louie, and if you want to support my channel, head on over to Play Asia. If you don't want to support me there, head on over to J-List. Thank you for supporting my channel, and be sure to look out for new content. All the links can be found in the description.
So this is Louie, and I thought I would do a response to this response to the Gillette ad. For those of you that haven't seen it, go view my last video to understand what we're talking about. But this is a satirical response to the outrage caused by the Gillette commercial. The issue is that whenever there is outrage from the right, there's no one that actually addresses the outrage. For example, if feminists or if some group of activists on the left get outraged and they go, oh, the wage gap, oh, there's discrimination happening in colleges and it's against women, something like that. Whoever, maybe just conservatives, those against them will point out, using evidence, how they're wrong. They'll show, okay, according to these statistics, according to these graduation rates, according to this, according to that, according to this official policy, here's the evidence to showcase why what you are angry about is non-existent. It's a non-existent issue. The big example that I gave is the wage gap. That's something that still today is regurgitated by activists, and people get all outraged about it. Bernie Sanders, women are earning 77 cents on the dollar. This is an outrage. Let me wave my hands. This is terrible. We need to stop it. It's not real. It isn't. Women earn less, and there's a million explanations as to why, unless they're young women, in which case most of them, if they're careerists, actually earn more than men. But the point is that it's an outrage based on nothing. I found that when those on the right, and it's not every instance, I think that instances like James Gunn, him being fired, and conservatives getting really bent out of shape about the jokes that he made on Twitter, I think that that was more offense than it was substantive disagreement and outrage to that effect. Maybe you disagree with me in that regard, but I do think that the James Gunn example was one where those on the right went too far. And I don't think that there was enough merit to the accusations to justify what was then done in his case in being fired. I know that he's very successful and was immediately picked up afterward to do something else, but I don't think that it was warranted to the degree that people went in trying to get him fired and that sort of thing, and to hound him over what were gross jokes would be the best way that I would describe them. But the issue, I think, is at hand here is not just one instance of the right going too far, in my view. It is the fact that every time you see an outrage from the right, or mostly every time, and it's based on something that is propaganda from the left or whatever the instance is, there is never any real addressing of what the outrage is. It's always a dismissal. It's always this angry mockery, like seething mockery would be the way that I would describe it. It's just a dismissal of what inspired the outrage in the first place, rather than actually counter-arguing and giving an argument. I never see that. I never see the left offer something that is substantive as an argument against what's being said. Occasionally I'll see something like a Vox piece talking about censorship, something like that, where they'll try to address it, but it's so obscurant and dismissive that it may as well be a piece like this. And so what we're going to read is by Ileana Gordon on this website, McSweeney's. But I read through this, and I said there are points that they raise that they openly dismiss, but are actually real points. And this is one of my problems, is it's not with satire or this particular satire piece. Like, this isn't going to be me shitting on Miss Gordon here, because Ileana, how the fuck do you say this name? But I'm not going to be dumping on this person necessarily, but I do think that this is a good example of you're attempting to dismiss something that occurred. which it is a culture war. But the thing is that in this, you dismiss the idea of there being a culture war when the opposite side, so to say, is absolutely engaged in a culture war. So it's like, okay, do you want to be honest about this or not? Like, yes, I'm telling you right now, we are in a culture war. I can admit that. I am on a side in a culture war. The other side, for whatever reason, denies it. Oh, you're just crazy. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're jumping at shadows. In the satire piece, this is the kind of thing that you see through and throughout it, is the idea that things are not actually as they seem. You're deluded, you're crazy, this is nothing. When it's like, okay, you can just go on Gillette's YouTube channel and look at all of their different commercials, look at all of their different videos, and notice that none of the other ones that are on that page are like this one. They're inspirational commercials, they're how-to guides and how to shave and how to manscape or, trim your beard and that sort of thing. It is videos on topics directly related to their product or attempting to sell their company on, feel-good bullshit, if I'm being frank about this. And most companies do that. Most companies sell you on the idea of feel-good bullshit. They try to associate that with their brand. That is basic bitch marketing. Although I would say that it's more modern now. That's 80s, 90s, 2000s, and onward basic bitch. It used to be that if you were to do an ad, it would just be selling the actual product. But in modern times, it's just been trying to associate your brand with good things. Look at these kittens. Like, it's like the Old Spice ads to some degree, in that they're satirical, but it's hyper-realistic in its attempt to associate positive things with the product. The tacit purpose of that commercial is satire, but the actual purpose of that ad is simply advertisement for Old Spice. That is the direct reason why that ad was created, televised, streamed online, put in ad space, the rest. It's not actually about satirization. It is, in fact, about advertisement. This Gillette ad, however, it doesn't actually market the product. It doesn't actually associate the brand with anything positive, in my view. It's, in fact, just pushing propaganda. And the issue is that other brands have done this in the past, and as far as I can tell, it has actually worked in their favor to galvanize an incredible amount of publicity. People say that there's no such thing as bad press, but then people say, oh no, you can damage your brand with negative publicity, and that's true. But the issue is that in instances that are divisive, like with Colin Kaepernick with Nike, that was actually smart marketing from Nike. Because even with the outrage that came from them associating with Colin Kaepernick, and you can go watch my video, at least one, on Colin Kaepernick. I think he's a substanceless, fucking talentless idiot. Despite that, the two sides that were created from that controversy of his virtue signaling in the NFL, the bigger side sided with Kaepernick and bought Nike as a direct result. That negative publicity created a tremendous amount of eyes on their brand, and they profited as a direct result. And I do believe that there's a good chance in this case that actually is the goal of Gillette. That, to me, is what they were likely thinking in those that approved this ad. Now, I'm going to distinguish that between those that made the ad. I think you're either dealing with people that, as I said in my commentary, are genuinely fucked up, or they are the sharks of the world. They are those that recognize what angers people, what is going to be controversial, what is going to be playing to the tune of certain people enough, but also substanceless enough that it will drive publicity their way. Because they could have actually made a video that took up the flag, raised the flag of feminist bullshit and the rest of toxic masculinity. Like, they actually could have done a hard ad, something that would have still been propaganda, but would have gone after the issue a lot fucking harder. But instead, this was actually far more milquetoast outside of, as I commented on, the one scene. That one scene I genuinely think is fucking evil, and I stand by that criticism. In the case of Gillette and their parent company, this is them trying to generate publicity and attempt to sell product as a direct result. The issue is that it is risky. This is something very new in terms of marketing, and it's risky. Because I think if you look at gaming, for example, marketing doesn't always go in your favor. And if your brand is damaged enough, you really just damage your brand, and you will, go down the road of insolvency. The more you lie, the more controversy you create. If you release bad products, and I see a lot of people complaining about Gillette's brand in terms of price gouging. That's an apparent accusation against them. But the thing is, though, they are banking on the idea that in the end this is going to generate more profit, and people are going to forget about this. This is just going to be momentary outrage where commentators such as myself call them out, look at the ad and get outraged by it, and then a year down the road I show up at my local grocery or whatever and pick myself up some Gillette blades and a razor and shaving cream and the rest and deodorant and the other things that Gillette makes. They're expecting me to forget, or the average person to forget, and then to show up and buy their product. In the case of Nike, as far as I know, that is in fact what happened with the Colin Kaepernick outrage. People forgot about it and they profited from that. If you have contrary evidence to say that in the long term they've actually done worse overall, feel free to show that evidence. But as far as I know, this was actually smart marketing on their part. But for the sake of the argument of the culture war, I'm going to go through this article and point out a few things about it and indicate why I think that overall the people on the opposite side, even if this is just cynical marketing, the people on the other side of this don't have a counter argument. All they have is dismissal. And when they attempt to satire you and I for not liking this ad, they make admissions in their own right. Huddle up, men. I don't know if you've seen the new Gillette commercial, but our worst fears have been realized. Radical feminists have mobilized and, under the cover of darkness, overthrown the Procter & Gamble marketing department. So stop. For anyone who's been paying attention, it is factual to say that in the modern world, in modern times, SJWs, progressives, feminists, socialists, people on the far left, fringe left, have in fact joined companies, and they are using those companies to forward their agenda. How many corporations do we need to go through to show examples of that? How many conservatives or people that lean right need to be censored, gone after, demonetized, demonized, unpersoned, as people say, to showcase that this is in fact true? When Patreon kicks me off for saying the word nigger, or PayPal just deletes my account because I said the word nigger, or for whatever fucking reason, or if my credit card company cancels my cards because they don't like my politics or what I say online, how is that not politically based? How is that not an example of the countless examples of the hegemonic cultural power and institutional power in corporate America that the far left has right fucking now? And the fact that it's only getting worse to such an extent that a new market has emerged for all these different things, for transactions online, payment processors, for banks, for platforms, social media platforms, or video platforms. Think of all the litany of corporations that have now come into existence as a direct result of the far left and their control over these corporations and the market as it is. Think of how many companies you can think of, even if they've gone out of business now or have failed or what have you. Think of all the alternative platforms that exist as a direct result of this exact thing, of the culture war, of the left and their power in our society and across the West. You can point your finger at me and just dismiss me, but it's like, yo, you're not the one who's going to have your credit card canceled, or be kicked off of PayPal, or be kicked off of YouTube, or be kicked off of Twitter, or get kicked off of fucking everything. Google. You're not the artist or the producer creating something, trying to put it on a platform, whether it's Steam, PlayStation, anything, any social media, any, YouTube or what have you. The app stores. You're not somebody trying to make something and having it censored and or removed. You're not the one that this is happening to because you hold the right politics. You hold the right political views. What you're saying here isn't a counter-argument to people's outrage. This is just a dismissal. How many different hearings need to happen in Congress before you are just willing to show up and say, okay, maybe this is at least happening? Not even that you necessarily disagree with it. Maybe you agree with the censorship and the rest. What is it going to take for you to acknowledge that it's even happening? And all of you should know the answer. They'll never admit it. This is one of those big lie scenarios of just deny anything is happening as you take power. I see your skeptical faces, and let me assure you, the battle lines have been drawn. Yes, there is a culture war. While we are sleeping comfortably in our beds, these men-hating, it's actually man-hating, she-satans, have infiltrated male grooming, the last bastion of masculine identity, which I'm just going to let that stand for a second. I just got to say, it's a male brand. I mean, this is kind of the thing, whether it's this, the Boy Scouts, or whatever else, any, sports, or anything, video games, anything. There is no such thing as a male-oriented business, brand, or anything anymore. Everything needs to include women. If you're putting out an NFL game, you have to pander to women at this point, despite the fact that 2% of the players of that game are female. But again, just dismiss that. Just dismiss it. Who cares? Obviously, you don't, because you're on that side. Where once our preferred brands served us visuals of flannel Chad men triumphantly holding dead fish, we're now being subjected to images of male facsimiles holding hands with children. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Male facsimiles holding hands with children and breaking up wrestling matches. We will not stand for this level of sissification. Well, I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. This ad was about dependence. I don't know what to tell you. Do I need to just show an example of what I'm talking about? Like, we've been trying this shit as it relates to bullying and how to raise boys for 60 fucking years. And here, I'll just show you. Here's the direct result. Hey, all those dead kids. Oh, look at them running away. Oh, all those kids are dead. Yeah, haha, just another mass shooting. This is the direct result of your policies. I mean, forget about the generation, like right around my generation. It's, as far as I know, it may have stopped being as bad, but when I was growing up, dude, fucking every kid, especially men, were on fucking Ritalin. Everybody was on fucking Ritalin. And that was a goddamn disaster. Every kid that I knew that, and I'm not going to generalize too much because maybe some of you listening to this were in that regard, on Ritalin because of, doctors prescribing it or whatever, because you were a rambunctious kid. But I knew kids that were just, they needed discipline. And either they didn't have fathers or their fathers just didn't care or whatever, but they needed discipline. They needed organization. And they were just given Ritalin, and it fucked them up. They were never fucking normal. Like, I knew a kid in elementary school when I went to private school, and we both grew up. I went on to public school. He stayed in private school, and he's a fucking mess today. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but by comparison, I'm objectively normal. He's not, because the Ritalin fucked him up. Because that's what happens when you're that young and you're put on a drug. I'm not trying to say that medicine can't help a child when they really need it. But I do think that that kind of medication was crazily overprescribed in that era of time. And I think that rather than discipline boys as needed, instead they were just fucking medicated. Look at all these different kids that have gone on to do mass shootings. And this is what I mean. Like, did any of these kids seem particularly masculine? Were these the jocks of the school? Think of all the different mass shootings that have happened in schools. Were they particularly masculine boys? Were they super alpha dude bros? Fuck no. Can anyone find me one instance of a mass shooting being done in a school by a fucking bro, by a jock? Can you find me one? I'm not aware of any. They've always been wimpy, fucking pussy, effeminate weirdos. They've always been that. And another thing that, I've heard conservatives talk about, and I don't know this to be true, but it's been alleged that many of them have also been on medication. I don't know that to be true, but that is what's been alleged. And I can believe it too, knowing those that I have that have been on medication that have grown up all fucked up. They never actually dealt with what the issue was. Medication is for fucking old men. It's for people that have actual disorders. People that actually need it. That have high blood pressure and the rest of it. Some issue with their fucking gallbladder. That's what medication is for. It's not for fucking kids. Unless they're actually sickly. Unless it's something you can actually fucking diagnose. I don't want to make this overly long, but I'm dead serious in that we've been trying this wrap every kid in fucking bubble wrap and don't actually give him adversity. Don't actually force him to fight his bully and the rest of it. Coddle him and wrap him up in bubble wrap, throw him in the closet, and treat him like a fucking, like I said, defective girl. And I mean it. Eric Kane can go ahead and dismiss me on Twitter. This is how we treat boys, as defective girls. We still do it, and we've been doing it for multiple generations. And the direct result, in my view, is fucking school shootings and defective men. My joke at his expense was, just give it another decade, and somehow we're going to format fucking biology. We're going to format human nature if we just give those boys enough fucking Ritalin and treat them enough like defective fucking girls. As far as I can tell, girls, whatever problems they may have, they have nowhere near the amount of problems that young boys and young men do. Nowhere near the amount of problems. And yet again, we treat young boys as defective girls. Why? Why is there so little concern about young men, boys, fatherhood, masculinity in terms of actually embracing it rather than treating it as a disease? Why is that something that is just accepted when the direct result is not healthy? How many more decades do we need to continue doing this before we finally say that it isn't working? How many more decades? Just give me a number. How many more boys need to die? How many more victims need to die by their hand because they're fucking high on medication and they're going into school with their father's AR-15 or mother's AR-15 and blowing away 20 of their fucking classmates? How many more bodies until we actually decide to discuss the fact that treating boys as defective girls, because they are different, they are not the same. They are biologically different. They have different needs. They have different motivations and the rest of it. They are not the same. Tabula rasa is killing boys. It is killing men. We are not blank slates. Neither are girls. In fact, we are generally hardwired to be a certain way. The most telling example of that, other than the biological examples, are career. Just look at the careers that men and women choose generally. It is ridiculous the differences that exist and the statistics that exist for when you try to get rid of all the obstacles to joining that particular field, when you try to make them as egalitarian as possible in terms of admissions, or even if you add quotas, they only get worse in terms of separation. This is something that is hard science at this point. It is something that shows you that biology is real. It indicates a certain amount of certainty that a certain amount, heavy amount, of men and women are hardwired to be a certain way, or for certain things to appeal to them more than the other, or to have different motivations. The idea that boys and girls, or men or women, are the same is a lie. And we should in fact have separate policy for how we deal with bullying as it relates to boys and girls. Girls ostracize, boys fight. That's the distinction. If I may be so bold to ask, how dare they? How dare they suggest that men are anything less than perfect just the way we are? I don't even want to comment, because it's like, we have a crisis with boys today, and you don't fucking care. I don't even really want to get into it. I really don't. But there is a crisis among young boys. There's a crisis among men. You see many instances of men checking out of society. You see the issues of boys and education, and the fact that overwhelmingly in higher education, it's just women graduating. They're making up more and more and more graduates in every class, and maybe that's the goal, to have no male graduates in higher education. But if you are actually concerned about men and boys, you would stop dismissing this as an actual issue, as you are. You're misrepresenting the opposite side. You're not actually making an argument. You're not actually being fair with what the other side is even saying. And you don't bother. This is the thing, like I said, you don't bother to actually address the other side. It's just this. This is just the general attitude of things. Like, this is the responses that I've been getting from the opposite side to my video and my commentary online. This is the direct reaction. It's this. It's just seething dismissal, seething mockery. It doesn't feel genuine. It's like something you see out of the Saul Alinsky book, The Rules for Radicals. Like, it feels like something like that. Something that is just a reflex, tactics that you know you need to say in order to put the person in the center, the neutral person. You need to put them on their back heel and try to convince them that the other side is fucking crazy and that you're mocking them and that they are deserving of mockery. I'm going to reiterate, it's not just this piece. It's not just this. This is the general idea of what I see every time something like this happens. How dare they imply that there are some among us who might benefit from behaving more thoughtfully or with more compassion? No, compassion is a weapon of the left. You can say whatever you want to do about the lobster man, but Professor Peterson has talked a lot about compassion and how it's actually being used as a weapon. Men don't need advertisers butting into our lives, trying to dictate how we should feel, look, feel, and behave. We're not women, okay? This disgusting piece of virtue-signaling propaganda, and I agree with this satire here, this is actually true, is a direct attack on our entire gender. Yes, it is, in fact, an attack on our entire gender. But more importantly, on each of us as individuals. Yes, that is also true. Not all men are toxic. I'm not toxic. Before we actually continue with your joke, I understand that this is the setup for your joke. You need to convince me of toxic masculinity. This is the problem with toxic masculinity. I've yet to be convinced of the concept. No one bothers to explain to me why there's such a thing as toxic masculinity. I ask why. Please explain it to me. And I just get jargon, buzzwords. No explanation that I can just accept. I don't even know if I necessarily disagree with toxic masculinity. As it is, I don't comprehend it. I need an explanation. I'm genuinely asking for an explanation that I can understand. What is toxic masculinity? Please explain. But continuing with your joke, Frank's not toxic, Bill's not toxic, Pete's not toxic, Steve is probably toxic, but he's only like that because of his bitch of an ex-wife won't stop nagging him for child support payments, which I'm just going to let slide. But Levi's not toxic, Joe isn't toxic, and that's just the men in this room. I could go on and on. That was a joke, for those of you that may not have gotten it. Folks, here's what we're fighting for. The ability to continue doing the bare minimum. Like, this is where I gotta stop and say, like, okay, you women go fight the wars. You women go clean the sewers. Is that gonna happen? Nah, it's not. You're gonna go warehousing? Nah. You're gonna go do the policing? Nah. Like, this is the thing. Women don't cope in certain environments. And I've watched footage online of women that are police, and I'm not begrudging or dismissing women that are police officers, but god fucking damn, do they not seem to handle certain situations very well. I have seen women police officers that are very cool under pressure and are in firefights with men and perform as necessary. By all means, they have impressed me. And I am proud to see someone like that in a uniform and call them my equal, or maybe even better than me in that way, that I don't know how I'd perform under that kind of pressure. But the fact is, I'm being fair, and the opposite side isn't. This is one of the problems that we have, is I'm not playing by Saul Alinsky's rules, and that's to my detriment. I really should, if I wanted to win this culture war. I actually have read half of Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, but it's fucking dry read. But if I wanted to win this culture war more, I probably should finish that book sometime. That way I'd be more effective in propagandizing to people. Sorry to those of you listening to this that are followers of mine, you subscribe to my channel. I'm not very good at propagandizing to you. I apologize for that. Just because some men agree that society has a problem with sexual harassment, and always will, bullying, and because of you always will, and misogyny, okay, sure. Everything is fucking misogyny. I am currently breathing. I am a male. It sounds like misogyny to me. Doesn't mean all of us should be required to help correct it. I'm not. You can jail me, but I'm not helping. Not all of us grope women or make sexually aggressive comments. I do make sexually aggressive comments online, but I don't to women that I'd actually like to fuck, unless, you know, I pick up on the fact that they're into that, but I've yet to meet one. I've yet to meet a woman that's actually into that, but who's to say that there isn't a woman that's into that? That's kind of one of the things of assumptions, is you have to be an ass to make them. Is that the line? Some of us just laugh about it afterwards. I do. Why are we getting lumped in with everybody else? Yes, why is this a collectivist assumption about men? If one woman lied about being sexually assaulted, we wouldn't immediately assume that all women are lying. Again, that is in fact a lie. Only on an extreme, incel forum or image board, whatever, are you going to find men accusing women of all lying. That's the only area in which you're going to find that. But listen and believe is just the mantra of the left, not even of feminism. It is the mantra of the left to listen and believe. That's where the whole Me Too thing kicked off. The fact is that, yes, there are men that are sexually abusing women, but there's a whole other side of the Harvey Weinstein issue, is benefit. Why? That's another one of those things. Why? He may have raped some women, and in that case, he's definitely at fault. But if he's getting a blowjob, is every one of those blowjobs non-consensual? Is every one of those blowjobs just for nothing, just for sex sake, for the woman? I don't fucking think so. That isn't the way Hollywood has worked for the last 100-odd years. But that's the other side of the issue of, even with Harvey Weinstein, that no one wants to fucking address, because it doesn't involve women as victims. It involves women as using men for advancement. And that will always be true, by the way. That is the power that young women have. Sex. And it's something that most men don't have. Attraction is obviously a benefit that one has or doesn't, but the strength that women have when they're young and beautiful is being able to use that to their direct advantage. And I guarantee you that there were, in fact, instances of that involved with Harvey Weinstein. Blowjob for favors, blowjob for a part in a movie, etc. No one wants to talk about that fact because it doesn't go along with the narrative, but that is what happened to some degree. No one is even saying that Harvey Weinstein raped all of his victims or alleged victims. There were instances of it, apparently, but many of those sexual cases likely were favor for a favor, quid pro quo. Obviously, the guy is going to jail for a reason, but that doesn't mean that every one of those cases, every one of those sexual instances with women, interactions with women, were non-consensual. I mean, we would, but that's a completely different story. Oh, sorry, that was another joke I ruined. No, it's time for men to stick together and toe the party line. Projection. If we admit there are some places where we as a gender might make improvements, what's to stop humanity from demanding even more of us? Well, I mean, there's a trade-off. I don't know if we're going to collectively bargain as a gender union, apparently. I guess we stop picking up the trash, we stop cleaning the sewers, we stop keeping the electricity on, we stop policing the streets, we stop performing all the EMT work. We just let society fall apart until women do X, whatever you put out. We're all going to become mini Harvey Weinsteins. Bitch, you better put out or that sewer's getting backed up. That toilet is not getting installed unless you put out. That's like some fucking thing out of like a manga or whatever the sexual version of it would be. If we disavow bullying, what's to keep our... I disavow bullying, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to clap for me right now. I want to hear a round of applause. I disavow bullying. What's to keep our wives from asking us to pick up our dirty socks or take up... Like, any guy needs to fucking... I mean, bitch, you take out the trash or stop farting on them in bed. That one might be true. There are concessions we are unwilling to make, and this is a slippery slope we're navigating here. I'll tell you what, if Gillette wants to play like this, we'll show them the worst a man can get. Okay, that was a little bit funny. Forget boycotts. This calls for a full-scale mancot of their complete product line, okay? I'm talking razors, shaving cream, aftershave balm, and deodorant. By the time we're finished not grooming ourselves, we'll make no-shave November beards look like a 13-year-old's wispy-ass soul patch. That wasn't bad. We'll fight fire with body odor, and we will triumph. You didn't stick to landing. It's time to take up arms, men. Grab your phones and prepare your Twitter fingers for battle. Projection. We shall defend our toxic masculinity, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the internet. Projection. We shall fight on the message boards. Projection. We shall fight in the Reddits and the subreddits. Projection. We shall fight in the comment section. Projection. We shall never surrender our right to not improve ourselves. We will defend our status quo to the death. It's funny to hear a collectivist talk about a lack of improvement when I'm an individualist. Like, that is the core, that is the fundamental basis of, especially like Nietzschean individualism. Like, that's the entire point. But okay, you tell me about self-improvement. You tell me. I'll sit back and you tell me. As a collectivist, you tell me about self-improvement. By all means. Holy shit, what a conversation that's gonna fucking be. I've slogged up this molehill, and I'm preparing to die on it. So I know that this has already gone very long as a commentary, but I will say once again that I realize this is a satire piece. But the point is that in this satire piece, I recognize what is in essence just the common attitude, and just not even an argument, just opinion, in response to instances like people being outraged by the Gillette commercial. And as I pointed out in my commentary, I do think that there was at least one instance of that commercial that wasn't just, like I said, your average fuck men advertisement or a piece of propaganda. It was genuinely disgusting to me. And I know, based on reading the comments, that I'm not alone in viewing it as disgusting, as something evil. It really was. It really was something that I haven't seen before. Despite certain people's criticism that are autistic and don't know what symbolism is. It's one person in particular that will go nameless that I imagine will see this and immediately DM me on Twitter saying, "Oh, you're wrong, Louis. I debunked you. I owned you. I totally know what I'm talking about. I don't know what symbolism is. Please explain it to me, Louis, but I'm right." Shout out to that person who I'm not going to name. Anyways, I'll end it there. Thanks for listening, and expect there to be more content in the future.